Hi everyone, I'm Mike Damergis, and welcome to yet another edition of Bench Jockeys. My co-hosts tonight are Mike and Steve Gonzalez. Welcome to the show, guys. Tonight we'll be talking about Reggie Jackson, the latest inductee into the hallowed halls of Cooperstown. And a little later on in the show, Steve will be interviewing Mark Washington, Executive Vice President of the Westchester Stallions, and Harry Hart of the Stallions of the United States Basketball League, this county's latest venture into professional sports. But first things first, guys. Last show we did a segment including the Franklin computer, and you tabulated the 1978 Yankees, and I said Lou Piniella was the leading hitter on the team. You said Chris Chambliss was.
Yes.
You guys argued with me. I said Piniella was, and of course you bozos were wrong. What happened?
We was wrong.
We made a mistake. The computer categorizes the team by at-bats, not by batting average. Chris Chambliss led the team in at-bats that year. Lou Piniella led the team in batting average with a qualifying at-bats of around 400.
So anybody who was watching was saying, idiots, obviously you guys don't know what you're doing, so prove it and get it out of the way right away.
We stand corrected, we are idiots.
Well.
Okay, that was last show. This is a new show. Let's make some fresh mistakes. And speaking of a guy who made a career of producing on mistakes was Reggie Jackson. I mean, here's a guy who hit 563 home runs. This August 1st, he'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Do either of you have a problem with that, his selection into the Hall of Fame?
Not at all. He definitely deserves to get in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it.
On the first ballot as well. Absolutely deserves to get in right away.
My only complaint is that percentage-wise, the amount of votes he got, he's 10th all-time in percentage of votes. Tom Seaver, we know, was first. Next is Ty Cobb, and then Hank Aaron. But there are some men left out who come in behind Reggie Jackson in vote percentage to get into the Hall of Fame, which I think deserve to be ahead of Reggie.
Reggie's percentage, though, was 93.6, 10th all-time of any player ever to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, ahead of Hank Aaron.
No, Hank Aaron was third. I said that before. Hank Aaron was third. The guys that come into mind are Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams. I don't even think Joe DiMaggio got in on the first ballot.
DiMaggio,
that's impossible.
It took 3 tries for DiMaggio to get in. He got 1 vote in 45, and then he finally was elected, I think, in 55. But it was on his 3rd try. Mel Ott also took 4 tries, and Mel Ott hit 500 home runs, which was guaranteed passage into the Hall. So I think the voting is screwy. When you say that about Aaron not getting the percentage of votes, also consider who he was running against. Reggie might have run against a weaker field, making him the obvious choice.
A lot of people might see Reggie Jackson's induction into the Hall of Fame as the one-dimensional player being selected into the Hall of Fame. Do you see that as true?
Not at all. I think Reggie was, especially early on in his career, was all-around a great ball player. I don't think he ever hit for the high average, but defensively he was very, very good. And on the base paths, I thought he was an excellent, excellent base runner. Might not have been the fastest runner, but a very smart runner.
Reggie was a total ball player. I think one of the things you have to remember, he played in a ballpark that was a notorious pitcher's ballpark. The foul space between between first and third. A lot of the foul balls that would normally find their way into the stands were caught. In fact, in '73, the MVP year, he hit 323, but hit 323 on the road. So I think to hold certain things against him, like a low batting average, consider the ballpark. Secondly, people consider him to be a butcher in the field, but in the '73 series, he played center field. When Bill North went down, you wouldn't put a poor fielder in center. You'd find someone else. So I take issue with the fact that people would think he's one-dimensional. He's best known for his home runs. Such Lou Brock best known for stolen bases, but to categorize him as...
He could do a lot more, right?
Absolutely. And to categorize him as one-dimensional, I think, would be wrong. Plus, if there's a trend of so-called one-dimensional players, I think that has more to do with the specialization of the game. I wouldn't blame Reggie for induction of players that might not have a well-rounded game.
As far as his base running, one thing I want to point out, he's a very smart base runner. In the '78 World Series, when he had the altercation
that's right.
at first base.
When the ball hit him in the thigh.
Exactly.
A run scored because Piniella scored.
Right, and that was a key moment in the game and in the series. That, to me, is very heads up.
I think getting Tom Lasorda mad, automatic induction in the Hall of Fame, and getting Garvey mad on the same play is perfect. So that's induction right there. But a very smart base runner. And towards the end of his career, when he wasn't quite as fast, age robs your physical skills. He still knew when to go from first, right, and when to take a chance and go to first to third. He knew the outfielder's arm strength, and he knew the appropriate moment to take a chance. And I think that gets overlooked a lot of times, Reggie.
Okay, on that note, let's take a clip of the quintessential Reggie Jackson.
the final member of the all-time outfield triumvirate.
Reggie Jackson.
When I was a young kid, I was a great player.
There's a long drive. Jackson has hit it home. And it is gone.
I had more talent than most players.
Reggie Jackson. Dives. Has he got it? He has.
99% of them. And so for me, all I had to do was have a good year, and I was going to be in the top 5 or 10 in Most Valuable Player award.
There's a long drive to deep left going and gone. The kind of power that he has, he hits some of the longest shots in baseball.
And I was going to be named to the All-Star team. And it was just fulfilling the God-given ability that I have.
Reggie Jackson, a fine all-around player.
That footage really brings back a lot of great memories. I know. I remember Reggie in his heyday, and he was something else. Reggie once said, because he was so quotable in his day, "It's a fickle town. They get you, boy. They don't let you escape with minor scratches and bruises. They put scars on you here." This, of course, is Reggie's reference to the local New York media.
Well, Bobby Bonilla knows what he's talking about.
Right. Sure. Reggie never shied away from the spotlight. And I want to know, how did he escape unscathed in light of today's players and all the controversy going on, especially today with the Mets?
I don't think he escaped unscathed at the time. I think time has been kind to him for one key factor I'll get to in a second. But when he came on the team in '77, he was on a team that had won a pennant in '76, basically said, "I'm here, I'll finish the job." And if you remember correctly, he alienated the media, the fans, and a lot of his teammates for that remark, and a lot of other remarks, such as the famous, in the sports magazine.
Straw that stirs the drink.
Everybody knows that. But I think the key to what you're saying, how did he escape unscathed, was his ability to produce. And I think, in the end, saying those comments will rankle a lot of people, but if you win, you're forgiven real quickly. Reggie won. From '71 to '82, when he was on the A's, 1 year on the Orioles, A's, Angels, and Yankees, his team finished with 10 division championships,
in 12 years.
6 pennants, and 5 World Series winners. Now, I'm not saying he could say anything, but he came awfully close and could get away with it because he could produce.
Definitely, the guy always came through. I mean, say what you want, he always came through. The clutch hitter, Mr. October, he always did more than he expected. And one thing that I have to say is that Reggie was always secure with himself. I think nowadays, and I go back to Bobby Bonilla, I jokingly said something about it, but I think Bonilla making a lot of money is not secure with all that money and his talent. So he gets rankled very easily, whereas Reggie Jackson has a lot of confidence and knows that no matter what he says, he'll always back it up.
You shouldn't, well, I know you're not picking on Bobby Bonilla, but it takes a special person to endure. And I don't know if anybody would be able to stand up to what's the media scrutiny in New York. And Reggie was able to. So he's sort of like the exception. I think players in New York really aren't aware of the media coverage until they're here.
Right.
Reggie he ate it up.
Remember Mike Witt with the Yankees?
Eddie Whitson.
Eddie Whitson, I'm sorry. Eddie Whitson. Right. He wanted to come to New York, was really happy.
Oh, there's a list of players.
And then when he finally got here, he couldn't handle it. I think, honestly, though, the baseball misses that type of guy who can handle the media. I don't know how you guys feel, but
absolutely.
I think Barry Bonds, the type of guy who has the Reggie Jackson numbers early on in his career so far, can't really handle the media the way Reggie could. And I think baseball misses somebody like that. I
think baseball misses a winner. That's what they miss. If Barry Bonds had been able to get them in the series at least once, twice, I think you might see the second generation Reggie Jackson. I think that's what's missing from his career, but he's still young. He has a shot.
You talk about Reggie Jackson, too. His World Series numbers are phenomenal. 10 World Series home runs, .357 average. Dizzy Dean once said, "It ain't bragging if you can do it." And Reggie Jackson did it like nobody else really has done since we've seen in the last 20 to 30 years. We did some research and everything, and we chose the years from 1969 to 1982. Reggie's prime years, 1969, of course, being the first year Reggie hit the 47 home runs.
Finished third.
Right. And then 1982, the last year he led the league in home runs. So that's a 14-year span. Reggie Jackson hit 434 home runs. And as you can see by the graphics, Darryl, could you bring up the graphics, please? That Reggie Jackson was atop his class.
Yeah,
over 1,300 RBIs during those 14 years.
Yeah, the thing that really impressed when we were doing the research was that he was also first in doubles.
That's right, 362 doubles. He led the American League in doubles.
Right, but still quite an accomplishment. Most careers don't last 14 years. What about hits? I believe he was 4th in hits.
He's behind Rod Carew and Carl Yastrzemski as far as hits.
So there were a lot of other things that you wouldn't expect Reggie Jackson to be among the leaders, and he was. And when we were doing the research, his name consistently came out on top on a lot of other categories, not batting average, but he was, I think, in the top 20 as well.
Top 16 of American and National League from 1969 to 1982. And I remember when he was playing, he didn't get the credit he deserved as far as being a high average. Today, if Reggie was playing, who knows what he'd get. But that's what they said about Mantle when Reggie was playing in his day.
That's true.
You know, it's true. But it's great to be compared to Mickey Mantle and Reggie, I'm sure.
I got a question for you guys. 1973, what did Reggie accomplish in the American League?
Do you know it? I know it.
Well, he was the most valuable player.
Right.
Right, during the season.
And the World Series.
And the World Series.
During the World Series.
And he's the last American leaguer to accomplish that.
Part of Reggie's greatness was that his influence extended beyond the field. He was more than numbers. I mean, the press just loved him because of his quotes. Let me just read you a couple of quotes of Reggie. You know, he was sort of a shy guy. One quote he once said, "I didn't come to New York to be a star. I brought my star with me."
Fantastic.
Excuse me.
Another quote, "Love me or hate me, you can't ignore me."
He's a modest man.
And the final quote I picked out, if I played in New York, they'd name a candy bar after me. And that, in a sense, they really did in 1978. You remember Reggie Jackson hitting the home run in the bottom of the first inning against the White Sox, I think it was. Hit a 3-run home run. That was his 4th home run on 4 swings, extending back to the 1977 World Series. And the fans just showered the field. And he was Mr. Excitement. He was what it was all about.
He certainly was. Mike brought up a good point during the research about Reggie's influence off the field, especially with black ball players. Do you want to just
I think
on that?
Reggie wasn't the first to think of it, but one of the things he said was a lot of people just assume black athletes have more natural talent and they're not working hard at getting where they are. But Reggie was the first. I mean, he had a form and he's very articulate, and he pointed out that black athletes work just as hard and they're just as intelligent on the field. It's not just a matter of putting a bat in his hands and going out there. There was a lot of hard work that went into where his ability to do what he did. And I think the thing that impressed me about Reggie was that, I mean, he might have said things that rankled people, but he knew he had a form. That's not that he felt he had a responsibility, but he seemed to come up with a lot of things that made sense. And that's what strikes me about Reggie Jackson, his ability.
You think he was ahead of his time in a way?
I don't know if I can say he was ahead of his time, but he wasn't shy, and he knew he made great copy. He probably bailed out a lot of newspapermen. And when he said something, there was a lot of thought went into it. He said a lot of things, and some of it you could disregard, but he was a very thoughtful player. And the thing that impresses me about him was not only that he could back up what he said, but that he was a flamboyant character, kind of like the Muhammad Ali of baseball.
Okay, quickly, in 1967, the Mets had a choice between Steve Chilcott.
66.
66? 1966 amateur draft. The Mets had a choice between Steve Chilcott and Reggie Jackson. Who'd they choose? Steve Chilcott.
I think that's a smart pick.
Who never played an inning of Major League Baseball. Boy, they got to be kicking themselves, because years later they could have Tom Seaver and Reggie Jackson on the same team, and who knows how many World Series they would have won.
That would have been a great team.
Well, you know, it's funny because they talk about the bad trades they made, but you very rarely ever hear about it.
You never hear it. We had to dig it up, really.
You don't hear about that.
Well, also, one thing that was pointed out during our research was that Steve Chilcott was a catcher. Mm-hmm. At the time, catching, as always, I guess, it's always the hottest commodity.
Especially today, the way...
Right, but today, but also back then. So I guess, with that thinking, maybe it wasn't that bad of